Welcome everyone to season 3 of Let's Talk Cloud. I'm your host Akshay, and today we have a special guest with us. Please join me in welcoming Swapnil Pradhan, Senior Solution Architect at Zensar Technologies. Swapnil, thank you for being here today.
Thanks, Akshay. It's great to be here and talk about cloud.
Fantastic. Today we have to dive into the Cloud Migration Factory framework. Swapnil, could you please guide our viewers on this topic?
Absolutely. With the change that is happening right now in the industry, where clients is looking at their cloud first approach, it is important that they are looking at the right set of skills as far as cloud migration is concerned. And at Zensar, we have this factory-led tools and accelerator-induced cloud migration strategy and implementation framework, which allows easy migration of your applications, your workloads into your preferred choice of cloud. Let's talk about the cloud migration factory framework that we have, right? It depends on the 4 pillars, which is your assessment, foundation, the entire factory in terms of how the implementation actually moving the workloads and the applications will happen. And the last but not the least and very important is how do we transition when these applications move over to cloud, how that goes into the cloud ops model and the operation aspect of it, right? The key aspect here is, of course, the basics of the assessment. Do we really know what needs to move? What's basically driving this need for clients to move applications into cloud, right? It could be a one cloud, it could be a multi-cloud strategy. It is important for us to first understand the vision and the business aspects of that cloud migration, which allows us to basically look at how do we need to now define the strategy for it, right? How it has to happen. If there are certain applications which are still connecting to your on-premise, how do we make sure there is a hybrid connectivity setup? What sorts of a movement that has to happen? How these application needs to be rationalized? What sorts of a tool that needs to be used, right? Do we really need to do the assessment of these workloads from the cloud native perspective, or do we need to look at the third party tools, right? The framework allows us to easily integrate different tools, accelerators, even the third party tools to help ease out this migration process. What we have seen is a lot of our clients don't really have enough information because these are legacy applications running on their on premises, on their data center for years and years together, which leads to having the lack of documentation, which has been a very perennial problem across a lot of geographies and across a lot of industries. How do we get rid of that? How do we do the assessment? So it is important to have that clear understanding of the lay of the land as we speak in terms of how that needs to move over to cloud. Okay. The second aspect of this framework is basically foundation. It is again a equally important pillar to move when you're moving the applications, to understand what it needs to move those applications onto the cloud. Do we really have the solid foundation on which these applications and workloads are going to sit, right? So it is important for us to know how's the overall strategy of a cloud has been designed. A lot of cases we have seen where in-house client has done their initiation of a cloud migration, thereby build certain foundation components, certain landing zones, but are they really appropriate when you look at it from an enterprise perspective? More and more application move. Is it important that it caters to the different needs and wants of each of these applications? So it is equally important to understand how the foundation is, right? The third aspect, that's where the whole magic lies. That's where we are actually doing the migration, how these migrations are rationalized as part of the strategy, which are now getting moved over using the factory-led approach. How are we making sure same sorts of an applications which are getting lift and shift from your on-premises onto the cloud are able to do it without a lot of manual intervention, but more of an automated fashion, right? That's why that factory is very, very important, right? And once you move your application, the application team is doing the hypercare support. But how does that helps your operations team? Because they are the one who are actually going to now manage these applications once it moves over. So there is an equal importance that has to happen and has to be given to that phase where this application, when moves over, these workloads, when they move over, what sort of performance characteristic that needs to be monitored, what specific metrics that we have to look at, what are the tickets and service requests that we typically see it on these particular applications. So it is important to have an understanding of all of this thing before we actually do the migration. So that is the whole essence of how Zensar sees a cloud migration factory framework, and how we are continuing to help our existing clients and new clients in moving their applications over to cloud.
Wow, that's incredibly insightful, Swapnil. It's great. It's clear that a solid strategy is essential for a successful cloud migration. Thank you for breaking it down for us.
Thank you. It was a pleasure to be here.